Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Talking Mode. My name is Caroline, and alongside with me is
none other than Sarah. Hi. So you must be wondering what Sarah and Caroline's bringing on the table today, huh? It's sure is gonna be very interesting. Are you excited, Caroline?
yes, as always. I'm always excited for each of our new episode.
Wait no more. Today we're going to talk about technology and law. Well, what about it? Well, I mean, from the first time we heard of it, it's actually not really interesting to come to think about it. But here comes the fun part. Today, we're going to talk about the futurist biotech. What are the concerns regarding the advancement of technology and how technology affects the legal profession? So, without further ado, let's get started. So before we get into the serious discussion on tech and law, why don't you, Caroline, tell us about some of the highlights that we'll be covering in today's episode?
Sure. So in today's episode, we will be covering three distinct advancements in the technological field and how it plays out with the law that we mentioned. And so the first one, we will talk about the use of robots and machines in our daily lives. The second thing, we will be discussing about VR and AR, or virtual reality or augmented reality, which is currently happening at present, but we will be discussing how it will play out in the future and what are the even more advanced improvements within this field. And finally, the third technological advancement we will be discussing about is transhumanism, which is a very, I don't say rare definition that we have we heard of, but I can guarantee you that it's quite familiar with us in our daily lives. And so those are the three advancements that we will be talking about in today's episode.
So I guess to most of us who has access to, say, sci-fi movies, or I mean even regular dramas, we all see like this glimpse into what it's like to have drones flying around the cities. I think, and that's actually not, that's actually very common in some of like the developed countries like US, Canada. They have applied the use of robots in the forms of drones into delivering packages, like how Amazon does it under the name of Prime Air. And they declared that this service would be available in 2018, but until now, it's struggling to bring this policy to work. Just when you think that some things like drones could overcome any of the hurdles like traffic congestion to deliver the packages not only on time but super fast and super convenient, but why is it struggling to be put into use? What do you think about that, Caroline?
I think that obviously using drones for recreational use or personal use is kind of this normal thing that we have seen over the place, even here in Vietnam. But to use it in a running business and a multi-billionaire business like Amazon and many other companies like Google also have plans to develop such policies is quite another topic that needs further investigation and also like trials and errors to test, because what if the drones break down while it delivered the package, or obviously what are the different laws and the different regulations that involve with this particular I don't know, topic, because drones flying over our house, it's kind of a form of invading people's privacy, and we haven't had any laws that talk about that. And so that's one of the reasons why this policy hasn't been seen anywhere or been witnessed at a large scale. And also, even though they run tests and stuff, I think they just run it on delivering very simple and kind of this easy to deliver things like coffee, or very I don't know, personal items. But what about phones? What about very pricey things? We haven't we are not sure about that. And so That's why. But I've heard that the Biden administration, they have, plans. They have been contemplating on investing and, pouring money and pouring the country's budget into trying to develop a logistic kind of chain using drones for further infrastructure development. Yeah.
Right. So I think that just like anything, ideally speaking, it would work. But then, when it puts into context of things like safety, or like when things goes wrong, when you know how drones operate, the camera is always on, right? And once it flows back, like it flies past your house, basically it's been recording everything that it's surrounding it. And so I think like in movies, sometimes it does really comes into handy when it witnessed some kind of crime scenes where there's no surveillance. But then well, I mean, generally it's actually a intrusion of privacy, I guess. And without us knowing, because sometimes with the whizzing of drones we don't really recognize it under that, now that we're living in the cities and it's really noisy anyway. Okay, and so now we're going to dive into the questions regarding the ethical concerns of drones. What is the number one, the biggest problem that drones cause to the human race?
So one of the incidents that can happen if drones are put into use, that I can think of at the top of my head is the overload of drones. So like we have traffic congestion when we use we use motorbikes on our roads. If we use drones, then there will be a air traffic congestion on the sky. And so far there haven't been any kind of initiatives or solutions that can be proven to solve that, just like we haven't had any solutions that can prove to solve traffic congestions. So that's one of the many incidents that I can think of that will result from the use of drones in delivering packages. Another thing that raises ethical questions, which is regarding environmental issues, environmental problems. So I can think of an example. So if you need a new phone, so you would have to have a phone in a warehouse. But what if you purchase a phone here in Ho Chi Minh City? Then you would need a warehouse in Ho Chi Minh City. But what if somebody else who's living in America purchases the same phone? And so, for example, an Apple phone, then Apple would have to have multiple warehouses around the globe. And in order to run and to operate that much of warehouses, we need a large amount of energy. So far we haven't found kind of this permanent solution to renewable energy or some sort of energy that can be used in the long term that wouldn't cause any environmental issues. And that applies to drones as well. So that's one of the biggest concerns when it comes to ethical that regard environmental problems. And if we cannot solve the current issues, I think that we shouldn't cause more issues, especially with drones. And so that's why companies are hesitant to put this policy into work, into practice, or into their permanent legislation. Yes. Okay, so Sarah, what about the moral concerns regarding the use of drones in our daily lives?
Well, I guess that the biggest like issues dominating the legal discussion about drones is that the concern on privacy. So of course there are plenty of news that about upset beachgoers, how are like private property owners whose privacy has been invaded by private drones operators. Or in other case, like some people would use would try to use the name of their organizations, like for example the operators of Prime Air, Amazon's Prime Air, would abuse that to take the advantage of that, and they would probably invade some people's privacy, taking inappropriate pictures of them doing, and then blackmail. Who knows, right? The problem with keeping and maintaining one's privacy, it's already on its verge of basically it's been a huge issues before drones um but now, I mean, like with the birth of social media, I mean, there's basically, I don't know how much of privacy that we even have, because to the point where I don't see like what is the boundaries anyway. What is the end? Like what is the start of our privacy? What is the end for like public use or display of our images? And now comes drones. Things would be a little bit out of like not really a little bit, but like a lot out of hand if there is no ones to actually take control over what images are being taken, because it's really hard. How come to think of it, like if drones operates and all the data that are collected by that drones will belong to the like will only be controlled by the its operator. It's not of public like it doesn't show to the public, right? For example, if I have a drones and I register my drones, it's basically legal. But then what happened if my drones just take pictures of whatever that it's passed by? I mean, I don't have the right. I mean, I don't have to post it to social media or like any of the websites saying that. Okay, so here are all the photos that have been taken by my drones, and then asking if they want to be showcased. No, it's become my property. And you see how important, like how dangerous that is. Very, very dangerous, I would say. So that's, I think, the take on moral and legal discussion on the use of drones.
And also, when we decide to use drones on a much frequent basis, that means that many people will lose their jobs because of this. And also that poses a question about if it's moral enough to take away somebody's job, even if with a risk, because we haven't seen any proven facts or evidence that using drones will be effective. And so even if it comes at the risk, if we decide to still use it, is it moral? And is it fair for the people? Because obviously, yeah, with many problems that we've been discussing about, yeah, but many companies are still testing and are still using this technology. And in that case, I don't know if they have violated the law yet, because they operate the drones, and the drones will automatically take pictures and videos if it passes certain people's houses. And so that also kind of poses to me a question if the company's right will be put above our rights, when Amazon drone pass over our houses, and is that considered a violation of privacy? Yeah, so that's my thoughts, and it's pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
I think totally. Like in the process of even like using drones right now, it has violated a
Yeah.
lot of people rights. But then because the law is not catching up with it, since it's new, and I mean people are still discovering like the scope of how drones, and then how it relates to like how it plays its part in the role in the lives of our lives. So I think that um until now, I mean the idea of drones sounds really cool, I gotta say. I mean I think like even in movies to see how it flies, and I even want to operate one. But um well, that's just theoretically speaking, right? Life is not a dream. Well, so I just hope that, I think for now, Grab or like delivery works fine. Yeah, I'm fine with land shipping. Okay.
Yeah. And even if like with traditional shipping, like problems happen, right? The shipper doesn't arrive on time. Many problem exists now that haven't been solved. So I mean, suggesting another new solution that is even more problematic, it's not a very smart decision. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to the second topic, which is VR, AR, and the future of this technology.
Right. So now we're going to talk about AR and VR. But first, what's the difference between VR and AR? Basically, augmented reality and virtual reality, commonly abbreviated under the name AR and VR, are reality technologies that either enhance or replace a real life environment with simulated one. But augmented reality, AR, augments your surrounding by adding digital elements to a live view, like say Pokemon, like the game Pokemon Go. Um, so that's just basically using the camera of your smartphone or like any of the smart devices. Virtual reality, on the other hand, it's a completely immersive experience that replaces a real life environment with a simulated one. Like you see how people wear the VR goggles and they just, yeah, that's basically a virtual setting. And the other one, the augmented reality, it's the real life setting. So that's basically the main difference between the two things. So Caroline, what about the use of VR and AR that that makes us want to have the discussion? What about them?
So as most of us have probably known, AR and VR have been used at the present in many industries, like the gaming industry, that have been exploding over this past couple of years with the lockdown, with COVID-19, people staying at home, and also it has been used in many other industries, like I don't know, law, for example, in recreating the crime scenes, and helping the police to be better aware of the surrounding of the crime scene, because with our human eye we cannot really see with every angle, and so with AR and VR we can really recreate the world in a 360 degree, and that will provide us with a better and more, I don't know, multi-dimensional perspective, and yeah.
And we created an interactive 3D model of the warehouse, and it was so effective that when the jury was out deliberating, they asked the judge to give them an iPad so that they could navigate the model. And yeah, what you see here, this is a portion of the model that we have on Sketchfab, which is a real-time rendering program, and this is part of what was a larger interactive exhibit where the prosecution could not only dissolve away the floors and they could show the location of the fire, but also the post-fire conditions and the presence of the decedents in the wreckage. So
the reason why I feel like AR and VR is kind of dangerous and that we have to talk about that, we have to need a discussion about that, is that recently with Facebook becoming metaverse, and with Elon Musk and many other billionaires kind of promoting the different plans for the future of AR and VR. For example, metaverse aim, like Mark Zuckerberg's company Facebook now becoming metaverse, aim is to literally transport people from the real world into virtual reality.
It hopes to use artificial intelligence to let people generate virtual worlds by describing them through speech, improve voice assistance, and translate between languages. Zuckerberg also announced work on a universal speech translator and generating a first-person experience within the metaverse.
And I think that the way that they would do that is by using a contact lens that we can wear. We only have to activate them using our thoughts, and we don't even have to use our hands, and we can really see. So for example, if I wear that contact lens, when I look ahead, I can see my plans in front of me. I can see the music that I'm listening to. I can literally see my phone in front of me, and that's about their plan, and that sounds very fantastical, but that's their plan literally. And so yeah, and even with Elon Musk and many other billionaires, they're trying to do that, and they are, we can either wear a contact lens, or we can either get a chip or something implanted into ourselves, and so yeah, that's how they will do it. And for me, that's very controversial, and that's where the ethical and moral questions come in. But to answer your question, that's why I think that we need this discussion about AR and VR and the future of it. So another thing that I just think of is, the future of AR and VR is basically that we will have another world, a separate world that we will be living in. So I read an article, I heard somebody, or I listened to a podcast where they mentioned how, for example, students, So if they wear that contact lens, and basically that contact lens will access you to kind of this, I don't know, homepage of your life, and you will have different folders. So for example, school, for example, work, for example, life. And if you enter the school folder, then you would immediately access to your classroom, and your classroom will be virtually, but it will be virtual reality. We will not only, we will not study on Zoom or on our laptop, but we will actually experience the virtual reality. And
It's like we just enter a different void. It's just
like a game, like virtual reality. But we don't have to wear any goggles or something. We just have to wear a contact lens. Suddenly we will be transported into that world, and we will be actually studying but not studying there, if that makes sense. And so and literally with many other things as well, like playing games. So I again read somewhere that there would be kind of this. So instead of we interacting with our parents at home, like in person, there would be a homepage, not a homepage, but like a place in the virtual reality, where we can interact with each other. And so when I mentioned metaverse before, and so another aim of metaverse is to create avatars for each person, like an identification of themselves. So, in real life, we have the national identification, we have the different cards, different documents to verify ourselves. And so that also applies to the virtual reality. And we will be kind of, I don't know, designing our avatars, designing ourselves in the virtual reality world, and interacting with each other avatars in the virtual reality world. And it's it's pretty interesting, but that's a little bit scary.
Yeah, I think like when you mentioned the part how people could just enter like a different dimension, like sometimes I just could not really grasp the idea, because at the same time it's very common, like it's very popular now, but at the same time it's very new to me, because I think when it comes to like VR AR, I've always treated them like in a sense like they're just a game. Like, and then sometimes we just need a place to escape for like a few good hours and then get back to our reality. But some people don't actually consider this kind of reality a reality. They consider their real life in the other kind of dimension. And so the more that I kind of trying to familiarize myself with this whole concept, I just think that it's really cool how I think like it has this thing when it's relating, like it has something to do with like the philosophical questions, that like who we are, and then like what are we actually. Because if you believe that now that you're in blood and flesh and blood, right, this is your life, but on your life you're just there consciously. You see, like you're there consciously, you're not there with like your physical body. It's just like an image that you bring yourself to the other world, and believing that you have a different lives in the other world. And it's just,
but then you will be effective physically. If somebody punches you, then you would feel that pain. So that's where it's so like confusing at the same time, because even though we're there consciously, we are there 100% to an extent, right? Because somebody can punch you and you can still feel the pain. And so that's where it's so dangerous and so addictive.
And that begs the questions, right? And that begs the questions for legal discussion. How
if somebody
committed, the question, if you committed a crime in say virtual reality, does that make you a murderer? Like are you charged with like, because consciously you're there, you have the motive. Like what makes a murder, like what makes a person charged with murder or like guilty of such crime, is that you have the motivation, and then you did it, and then basically you did it but in the other world. So like the old age questions is that, are you guilty of murder if that action took place in the virtual reality or like augmented reality?
And that's why it's so like hard and complex, because I think like with the current world, the reality world that we're living in, the law is so in the gray already. So there's no right and wrong already. And so like if we are put into that virtual reality world, there are even more no boundaries. The lines will be even finer. Because we are not actually committing a murder, but our minds commit a murder. So yeah, I don't know. So that's interesting, right?
So basically, yeah, the question is like the question is that who will have like the authority, right? And basically control and then keep everything in order. Here we're just following a pathway, like the path from like million years ago, how people, just have this all kind of principles. But that's here, and that is this dimension, this life that we believe is our actual life, and the other one's not, supposedly not, but actually it is becoming. I mean, like as I talk about it, I'm still trying to grasp with the idea. It's mind blowing, actually.
Yeah, but when you mentioned that, I thought of one more thing. So the fact that virtual reality is present now, people, they play games in virtual reality. They also kill people in virtual reality already, right? And so yeah, and even that now, but we don't have any laws that kind of protect people, because I tried out virtual reality, and it's very real, and I don't even I cannot even register that I'm not there. Everything is so real. The feeling, the pain, the sound, everything is so real. So imagine how more real it can be in 10, 20 years, 30 years. So yeah, technology is scary. And so yeah.
So yeah, I think like it's like the time when we have the discussion on the value of money. Basically, because we believe that it has some kind of value, that we use it because it has the trading value of it, like that. So we believe that our lives meant something. It's our lives in the other dimension. It's actually real. So basically, for example, if we had any transactions or like any business done in the virtual reality, and what happens when it does not go through? Do we sue the actual court of law here? And how is that, how is everything going to be processed? This is like uncharted territory. We are basically in the dark about all this, and every opinions or anything that we have is just a speculation, or like it's just a imagination of how it's gonna roll out. Okay.
And so yeah, that's your questions to kind of think, and yeah, that's your food of thought. Maybe think, because I know that when we talk about the future, the reason why it's so kind of mind twisting, mind blowing, very confusing is because it hasn't happened already. So because like many years ago, 50 years ago, who would have thought that we would have the society that we have today? Yeah, who would have thought that we have I don't know, AI? Who would have thought that we have virtual reality, right?
When we thought that we have reached, the highest of like the technology advancement, there's something out there that's gonna blow our mind. I mean, there's something out there, and then something that you just thought that gonna just exist in sci-fi, but no, it's actually reality. It may not be in the next 50 years, but definitely there. And people are working towards. Yeah.
That's why, because like things have been happening, but we are not aware of it, right? People have been developing this kind of technology for many years. We are just kept.
Yeah, they may be hiding. They might be hiding in some caves or like some other.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, let's move to another.
This is not conspiracy theories, guys.
Yeah.
This is real.
I would leave the resources, and I would insert kind of videos along the way. But also like please check the resources, because obviously, because it's the future, we don't really know if it's true or not, even if the links are reliable, they are from independent journalism. But again, please check your resources and fact check.
Just be open-minded about this stuff, because
just check this.
Basically, no one knows about anything about it. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we're going to get to like the most interesting part of today's episode, and that is transhumanism, or
Yeah.
in other words, it's H plus. That's another thing that it's. I think
Yeah.
people also get H plus. Why is it H plus? Is it
I don't
like
know.
human plus? Is it like human 2.0? Right?
Maybe
Like
and metahuman. I don't know. People have been
uh,
romanticizing about metahumans ever since Avengers come out. I feel like superheroes and stuff. Um,
well, yeah. So I think that what is transhumanism anyway? Like what is that, Caroline?
So, transhumanism is a social and philosophical movement devoted to promoting the research and development of robust human enhancement technologies. So, technologies that will be used to enhance people's certain features. For example, human sensory reception, emotive ability, or cognitive capacity, as well as radically improve human health and extend human lifespans. So such modification resulting from the addition of biological or physical technology would be more or less permanent and integrated into human body. And so that's where the chip that will be implanted in our bodies come from.
So basically, right? So basically, the thing with transhumanism is that death is not a thing.
Yes.
Death is so out. No. Well,
Yeah.
you're gonna live forever, or you can change a perfectly like healthy limb for a artificial one. So yeah, so that will not be a thing anymore.
Yes.
Okay, so that's big. That's big. Death is not the big thing anymore.
One more thing. Even though like you may have questions about this technology, but really this technology is not new. But the extent to which transhumanists take the concept is, so in the past we made devices such as wooden legs, hearing aids, spectacles, and false teeth that that also considered transhumanism technologies that are implanted or connected to our body to help enhance certain abilities of ours. And so it's not a new technology, but in the future it will be new, the approach that we're taking, right?
Right. Because imagine a world where no one's going to die. Basically that. I mean, just think about that question. Really think about that. Because basically that now we're being raised and then we're being taught that, okay, so after 18 years of learning, or like no, and then 22 years of learning, if there's university, you go to work and you have a life, and then you live your life and then you die. And certainly you have that kind of motivation to live, to contribute, to do something great to the world. But now that is out of the question. And now there is no, like, come to think about it, when that is out of the question, you live on forever. And so you're not on, you're not on time pressure here. You're on time pressure here. And the thing is, you're not born with any deficiency. You are a superhuman. When human meets machine, you are superhuman. And imagine that. Imagine 8-9 billions humans just like that. What do you think about that? Can you envisage like living in the world that just like that?
Absolutely not. Like even with the current society, the level of competitiveness is like extremely high already. And so imagine if we are absolutely flawless. We don't have any insecurities. Everyone is powerful, strong, intelligent, beautiful, gifted, talented. Oh my god, like that's I don't know, a dangerous yeah, it's a scary society to live in, really, because the society that we live in today classifies people based on the level of socioeconomic status, right? And so if nobody is stronger, nobody is richer, nobody is wealthier than each other, then who will rule the society? Who will be the authoritative? Who will
True.
set
Like
the rules?
even that we have like law and order, there's a pecking order, right? So it must be different people from different walks of life and different statuses, and that's how our life that's how it's, works. But now everyone's the same. Okay, but then I think it's an easier question to compare to the question when I say only some people get access to the technology. So now how about that? Because now some actually got the supernatural power, but some just basically kept in the dark. They have no access to it. I mean, inherently they are poor and they are disadvantaged already, but now they are even more. So what would life be like? Or what would the world be like?
So that would be the society we live in today, but 100 times worse. Because obviously the rich will get access to this kind of technology, and we would not be able to even think of purchasing or even accessing to this technology, and that would make the gap that we experience, the I don't know, the gender gap, the rich and poor gap, like every sort of inequality in today's society will be worsened. And that's and of it I think actually even if we live in that world, nobody can change that can reverse it, because nobody is stronger. No, we will not have the strongest human, right? Because there will constantly be technology to improve ourselves.
That's true. Like on that point, so there's this the legal and ethical concern right there. Say if transhumanism is legalized, and so the person who has access to it, say, how about you in a competition, a sport competition, and if you have access to such thing, then you could perfectly cut your arm and replace it with a more powerful or artificial limbs, and then you win the race, you would receive the medal. So basically, is that fair? It's not fair because basically people are allowed to do it.
Mhm.
And also, are the doctors basically, I mean, is it right? Is it morally morally right for doctors to just chop up whatever, even perfect healthy limbs to replace it, or organs to replace it with something else? Is it, I mean, come to think about it, do you think that is really justified? I mean, is it morally right?
For me, I don't think it's right, but obviously there has been debates going on about this, and I don't know really, because each side has their own kind of reasons. And I think that this technology is possible, and it's on its way to becoming possible, because there's been this conspiracy theory going around that Elon Musk, he's testing this technology out. He's testing the ability to implant certain chips into humans' brains to enhance people's brains. From just testing with our hearing aids, from testing with our arms and legs. Now we're testing with our brains. And some people says that he has that installed in his brain already, implanted in his brain. But that's a conspiracy theory at the end of the day, because people have pointed out certain kind of inconsistencies about his behaviors, his ability to think, to analyze, and his intelligence overall. And so that's why people have that kind of conspiracy theories, just a food of thought. But yeah, so that's many of the rich, they have been thinking about this, because this is one of the ways for them to conquer our world and for them to fully take control over our lives, basically. Because living in the current society, we still have authorities, even though they don't care about us, but we still have authorities. We still are legally protected on paper, but in that world where the socioeconomic status are classified based on our strength, our wealth, then that would be a totally another story.
Yeah, I mean, and I think continue on the point where we talk about the whole concerns, is that currently how the law system works is that based on checks and balances. There are person who in charge of correction, and then basically knowing what's right, what's wrong. Like there's a term for, okay, that thing is right. But then when transhumanism comes, I mean, who gonna draw us the line, basically? Because I mean, it gets out of hand. Surely it's gonna get out of hand because if possessed by person of power, then just they're gonna get more powerful. And I mean, the one who got all the powers got to say. I mean, and those who are human 1.0, well, you are outdated. You has no use in this world anymore. So so I think I don't know how it's gonna affect the law because I mean there's only the law when there's nothing above it. But right now, something has taken its power, and someone, you know, the law is not an individual. It's a group of, you know, a group of people, a group of basically we have a law because we believe it's right. We believe in a equal and fair world, and so that there's a law. But now that's not, I mean, that's not so true anymore because well, I'm a superhuman. I mean, there's different laws for me, and you know, there's different laws for you. So same humans, but like I guess different species.
That can be a future. You know, where when the rich will become a species like human 4.0, and then the poor will become another species, human 2.0, for example. That would be horrifying, right? There's no way to fight for equality then. But with that being said, so I have another kind of knowledge, not knowledge, but like it's kind of fun when I research about this thing. So we have been talking about, you know, within the earth, you know, within our planet, but what about outside our planet and in the universe? Because the question that have been on my mind and many other scientists' mind is that, you know, are there life outside Earth? You know, that has been, you know, the number one kind of question. And the reason why I think that so many people have been trying to develop these technologies is to keep up and to kind of explore the universe and try to answer that question. And so one time that I scrolled TikTok, I saw a definition about type 1 civilization, you know, type 2 civilization, type 3 civilization. And basically the earth is, you know, classified based on that type of definition. We are not even type 1 civilization. We are type 0.7 civilization. And so we are not even close to being mature and to being technologically advanced. And so I don't know if this kind of system is correct, is legitimate, is reliable, but you know, just think about it, because I personally believe that there's life outside of Earth, because why not? And life outside of Earth, aliens or people outside of Earth, they are many times more civilized and more technologically advanced than us. And just think about it, if a type 2 civilization invades Earth. Yeah,
right. So now it's not just a discussion about like each individuals, but now it's like whole civilization. Oh my God.
And it's interesting because if we reach to type 1 civilization, we will be able to control the natural disaster to our benefit. So there would be no climate change. There would be no floods, storms, hurricanes.
Currently, humanity doesn't even reach type 1 civilization. This is because humans don't use all the forms of energy on Earth. We use wood, coal, and oil, but there's a lot more. Being a type 1 civilization means we would have complete control over all the energy on Earth. This means that we'd say goodbye to fossil fuels since they're limited and unsustainable. Instead, we could use the wind, sunlight, and water for our energy needs. And since this energy is so accessible, you may no longer need to pay for your power bill. In a type 1 civilization, we'd continuously be using energy. It would be as essential as oxygen. We would also start using natural disasters to our advantage. Tsunamis could be used to produce energy. And earthquakes could potentially be used to terraform parts of the world. With us having complete control over our planet's energy sources, we could also control the weather. If an area of the world were suffering through a drought, we could disperse rain clouds over it and bring it back to life. Humanity could also say goodbye to global warming, as we'd be able to bring the atmosphere back to carbon neutral and control our planet's temperatures. Casualties from natural disasters would also be reduced, as we'd be able to predict when and where they might happen. And not only that, but we'd be able to live on places on Earth we'd never have dreamed of before, like in the water, as well as in climates that used to be unsuitable for us humans. Experts generally agree that humanity might be able to reach Type 1 in the next 100 years or so, but that's only assuming that humanity lives long enough in the first place. With global warming getting worse and worse, and humanity not taking the correct measures to stop it fast enough, there's no telling what might happen.
Just think about it, it's cool, but how can we get there? So even if that's true or not. So yeah, it's so interesting to even think that we are just this little civilization in the universe with many more galaxies.
That's very interesting. Come to think about the perspective that basically humans are gonna be the last species that's gonna walk the earth. But that's from our perspective. But then come to think about it, there are 8 billion, I don't know, around 8 billion people in the world right now. But I'm sure that the numbers of animals are far greater. And in their mind, because see how dinosaurs exist way before us, and they died. And I don't know, from this perspective of animals, I wouldn't say that they don't know how to speak. They just have different languages that we don't understand, and we think we're so superior. Our goals, our ambitions are to be the last species to walk the earth. But what if that same ambitions overlaps with those animals? Well, right now it sounds like a little bit cuckoo, a little bit out there. Certainly not, but still there are some kind of possibilities that's gonna happen, right? Because we're not the smartest.
Yeah, we are certainly not the smartest. We are, in fact, the dumbest, I think.
Okay, so I think that, I don't think there's a definite, there's an end to this discussion. But, I think 40 minutes, it's already too much for an episode like this already. And so we hope that after you watch this video, you will, continue to research on your own, or have different, open discussions with your friends, family, your teachers on topics like, futures, biotech, and how the future will look like in the future. I believe that it's very fun, and it's very knowledgeable, and
yeah, it's kind of learning about sci-fi, but in a very scientific way. It's not very fictionally. It's very literary, and it's possible.
That's the most important thing. Try to keep it real, scientifically based, right? Because even though it is scientifically based, it's already mind-blowing. So yes. So I guess that's a wrap on today's episode.
Yes.
We hope to see you soon. So stay tuned,
stay safe,
and
stay awesome.
Stay awesome. Bye.